racing immediately. But a champion becomes a legend. McCabe Diva wins it again.
Yes, yes, yes. Wins the Everest. Glen Boss wins another big one.
Here we go. Who's the Boss season 6? Yes, 6. Adam Peacock here, over there, in our new surrounds as well. Glen Boss. Bossy, how are you, mate? Good to see you.
Good. Season 6. Who would have thought? Jesus Christ. And we've got the new studio, so we've upgraded. Everything's good, isn't it?
You got into Queensland mode because we've got a fellow Queenslander next door with the FPOM early doors. I'll just bring that mic in for our guest this week, John O'Shea, gun trainer. How are you, mate?
Yeah, great, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, unreal to have you along. What happened over summer, gents? You probably didn't have a holiday. You worked every day, but Bossy, you were the opposite.
I was the opposite. I went to Hawaii for 3 weeks. No phone, stuff like that, and just chilled out. And I've had a very easy January. It's been great. A lot of golf. And as you can tell, starting to tan up and get back on the fitness thing. But I'm feeling great. Ready for the start of the season. This bloke wouldn't have. He's just don't stop.
Yeah,
they don't stop.
Wake-ups every day and
No, we
rolling.
had a few weeks off.
Oh, did you?
Went to Canada to the in-laws and skied a bit with the kids and got home and, then sales season started. So it's been foot down ever since. But we did have a good 10 days, up in Quebec City and skiing, and it was great.
We'll get into your career in a moment and some old stories with Bossy and riding Group 1s for John Bossy. But when you go on a holiday like that, do you completely switch off or it's impossible?
No, we're sort of still in daily contact, and timing's pretty good there because you come in for lunch about in midday, and that's about 4 o'clock in the morning in Sydney. So, my crew are just getting to work and getting started, and by the time we sort of go into bed there, it's about lunchtime. So it's good. The last time I speak to him was at lunchtime, and it works really well.
But you got a great partner there in Tom, who's part of your business now.
Tom Charlton.
Tom Charlton here, and he's the perfect yin and yang with John. So you can walk away from the whole business and knowing that it's in very capable hands.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, like when you've got a young guy like Tom who's so, he's focused on attention to detail, and it just takes so much pressure off you, and he's got a good understanding of the game, grew up in it, and so it's been perfect for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Bossy, does this just reiterate that even when he's on holiday, he's not on holiday, that training wasn't for you?
It was never going to be for me. And I always said this to people, even I said to John, I firmly believe I would be a good trainer because I understand the horse. I love the animal. I kind of know, what the signs are and to all that stuff. But it's the people I couldn't, which is a real skill to be able to have the people skills as well and have that business. And I don't have business skills, and it's a business these days. So that's what would bring me undone.
Yeah. So we'll get into it shortly, the life and times of John O'Shea. But before we get rolling, I've got a new one for you, Bossy, at the top of each show. It's called The Real Hypothetical.
Yeah.
Now, is it a hypothetical that's real or something that's real that might be hypothetical? It doesn't matter.
We can make it real.
Don't overthink it. Yeah, that's the main thing. But it's simply a question about something that's going on in racing right now. Mm-hmm. And we've got all the good horses back. John just watched his linebacker in a trial moments ago.
Yep.
By the way, how'd he go? Happy?
Great. Really happy with it.
Early tip for the Doncaster.
Yeah. It was the greatest trial of all time last time he trialled when he beat Car Ying Rising. But that was fantastic. But the real hypothetical this week, Bossy, is we've just seen Tentaris finish like you wouldn't believe down the straight to win the Lightning.
Yep.
And we've seen Autumn Glow destroy them in Sydney in the big race last weekend. Okay, going forward, they race again on the same day in different states. The real hypothetical is to you, where are you going? Which horse are you riding?
Autumn Glow, without a doubt. I think it could be the next, I think it is the next big thing in racing. So she just continues. When you see them win, when she won the Epsom with 54 kilos, a mare, you don't see that's a rare thing. Like I think I've won 5 Epsons, and they've all been lightweights and proper horses. So she was thrown in the deep end at 54 kilos and come out the other side and smashed them. And then comes out and wins the Golden Eagle. It could be the next big thing. I think it is, but you don't get off those horses.
You did win an Epsom 57.
I know, but that was a superstar. Mate, he was.
Traded, obviously.
Mate, but he was airborne at the time, and he was the best horse over a mile in Australia at the time.
Racing to win?
Racing to win.
Yeah.
But he was by far the best miler in Australia at the time. He was unbeatable over a 1400 mile. He was a superstar.
So, okay, same real hypothetical to you. If you John Bassara calls you up that one day, or the Godolphin guys, who you know, obviously, from a previous life, Tentaurus or Autumn Glow, who you open the gates for. Yeah.
Autumn Glow. I think, to a mile of 10 furlongs in Australia at the moment, or 1400 to 10 furlongs, she's unbeatable. So, she's going to run in a lot of races where...
Well, she's my Cox Plate tip.
Yeah.
I mean, it just got this... It's just got all the packages that say it should be winning weight for age races because it can put itself in a spot. It's got turner speed and it's got grit, like it wants to win. So it's got all those attributes which make champions. She's not a champion yet, but she's
getting very close.
But doesn't mean she's going to be a champion, I believe.
It feels like it's on the tip of everyone's tongue to call her that and not mention the W word, given the picket fence form as well. And Chris Waller knows all about that with Winks in the stable. But yeah, she looks pretty adaptable.
Well, she's right on track, because she's got a very good racing pattern. And the thing about the Autumn Sun is that the progeny traditionally go a little bit better the further they go, and she hasn't really been extended beyond a mile yet. So it's going to be really interesting when she does get to 10 furlongs.
Later in the show, we'll do Bossy's best as well, but tradition has to be continued, even though we're in season 6. Bossy, you brought your 3 kids along
Brought
here.
the kids, they're all clean. And tradition is we have to have a sip of champagne over it, John.
Yep.
Let's celebrate the win of linebacker in a trial at round.
Well, let's start celebrating his Doncaster win right now. I mean, I think it's fair enough to say. I've picked a few Donny winners in my time.
Yep.
Smart thing to do, John, isn't it? Get way ahead of yourself in racing.
Oh, no, that's a never. That's something you never do.
You never do you?
Absolutely. Oh, you handled that well, Bossy.
I did, didn't I?
I thought you would have just dented the roof. That would have been a true christening.
There you go, mate.
Thank you, Glenn. Cheers. Just hang on to
I've had these refurbed, John.
Oh, yeah?
Because can you imagine 20 years? It's 20 years, right?
It's 20 years.
These have had that much piss drunk out of them.
Yep.
And they got banged up a bit. So I went and took them back to the original people and got them all refurbed. So these are basically like as they were. Cheers.
Good luck, brother.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, Ed.
Cheers. Were you with Bart ever when he won one of those? You worked with Bart?
Saintly.
Yeah.
Saintly. He was a decent horse.
Yeah.
God, he was a magnificent horse. I remember there was a moment where I trialled him at Warwick Farm and I really thought I was a chance of riding, that prep,
Right.
that year when he won the Cox Plate and come out and won the Cup. Geez, he was a magnificent specimen, wasn't he?
Well, he's
narrow from the girth back.
But he sort of developed as a 4-year-old.
He did, didn't
he?
he?
So, no, he was a fantastic
He was a proper horse.
I was doing work experience at AAP and I was asked to ring Bart to say, can you check on something he's got in at Canterbury on a Wednesday type thing. So I ring him up and I just off the cuff, I just said, how's Saintly going? And he goes, yeah, he's going all right. Blah, blah, blah. And he says, what do you think he can end up? And he goes, he's the modern day Farlap, isn't he? And I went, pardon? I've just got a great quote here as a work experience kid. It's incredible. So he had a pretty high opinion of the horse, didn't he?
Yeah, he was just trained to the minute when he got there, and watching him train him was a unique experience.
What would be the one thing, like when you work with Bart, what would be the one thing that you really took away that you incorporated into your
Two things, how he fed. He was the best feeder I came across and meticulous in that. And then, of course, having horses right on the right day at the right time. Peaking them at the time. And Saintly was a perfect example because when he was in Sydney, he started favouring in a Craven Plate and a Metropolitan and started short favouring.
Yeah.
But when in his gallops, he was never breaking 27 the last two, so everything was on the bit. Then when he went to Melbourne, the worksheets were coming through and he was running 22, 20. So he just build a foundation in him, and then when he got to Melbourne, he screwed him down. And I'll never forget Lee Freedman saying he watched him work on the course proper at Flemington on Derby morning and said the Melbourne Cup is over. Darren rode him in the work, and he worked over 10 furlongs and worked up the course proper. Yeah. Lee Freedman did an interview that day and said, I just watched the Melbourne Cup winner work. So, incredible. And that was what Bart was so good at. Yeah. It's presenting him at, if the race is at 3 o'clock, he had him ready to go.
He nearly fell asleep in the mounting yard in 96. I remember he was that relaxed.
Yeah.
The horse I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, but like so when we talk about screwing them down, it's like when John says like the horses instinctively know when you're the first part of the prep, you got them on the bridle, they kind of when you start letting them loose and they get fitter and they start eating more because they're athletes, right? They start to do better. They kind of know that that they're coming to the pointy end of what they have to do, and that's the art of peaking horses. And sometimes some horses can hold that peak for longer, then some go down. But
Well, that's the quality. That's a reflection of their eliteness.
Yes.
The elite animal. That's what defines the better ones from the also range. It's the capacity to perform at the elite level for an extended period.
yes, yes.
When you say he knew what to feed them, like was he a horse chef or something? Was he, Bud? He just
No, he
knew
was-
the mix to give.
He
them,
was
or-
just meticulous on what we fed and how we documented what we fed them, and that was the most important start to the day. Was he'd get the feed sheets and go through can we feed him a bit more, can we feed him a bit less, are we doing and he was a meticulous feeder of horses.
Yeah, after summer I need a Bart.
And like you work with Gay,
Yeah.
like so you're picking the bones out of like we're talking the elite trainers, aren't you?
Yeah, no, but I was very lucky because when I went to Bard, I'd worked for Gay for 3 years. And so by the time I got to Bard's, I knew what to look for in terms of how I was going to improve and so forth. And so I'll always be forever grateful to Gay for the tuition.
I never asked you this question, John. Like, what actually spurred you to take up? This is well, we know each other. We've been worked together for years. I never actually had this time to ask you that question. What inspired you to become a horse trainer?
I was just always drawn to it, even, growing up in North Queensland, all I wanted to do, basically, So, it was just, I was playing football for a club up there, and it was the year the Cowboys went in the competition, and I got an injury in the preseason, and I said, I'm out of here. So I rang Gay up and said, can I get a gig? And she was kind enough, she didn't know if, some kid from North Queensland ringing up for a job. I just started in the yard with her, and I was just only going to stay for 6 months, and I enjoyed it that much, so I never went home. And I remember I got there about a month. You'd just arrived in Queensland, and you rode the Golden Slipper winner about 3 months after you arrived.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that.
yeah,
I was a flying spur.
Flying spur, yeah.
Yeah, so and I, so that's I just started with her then, and
Yeah, we got
really
down there about the same time.
Before we really get rolling with the life and times, we've got to mention our great partners here at Who's the Boss, Air Touch. They're on board again for season 6. All your air conditioning needs, remote control, because I've got it right here on the iPad, actually. So you can control it wherever you are. Basically, you go to Air Touch and you get the app, and your air conditioner is linked up with it. Technology can dictate, and right here I can just go, okay, in the living room, I want my temperature at 24 degrees. Bossy, you've done this on the way back from golf. But in the bedroom, I just want things a little steamier in there, as always. 27 degrees. So, yeah, it's the app. It's linked up. They're fantastic supporters of Who's the Boss, and they're back again, and they've put the air conditioning in our new studio as well.
Unbelievable. So good.
Yeah.
If you haven't got it, get it.
Get it. Air Touch. Thank you to the guys at Air Touch for your support once again. So we'll get rolling again with your story, John. So footy, you love playing footy, but you realised that, you know what, I think horse racing could be a bit more longevity in it. Yeah,
and once I made the commitment, just chips all in and, never look back. So always be eternally grateful, as I always said, to Gabe for the tuition and a start that she gave me. And so I was very lucky. I've had a fantastic time, and it's still continuing, luckily enough.
John, can I ask?
Yeah.
Because I know you're kind of that person that you're very meticulous about what you do. And is this something you learnt observing like these trainers, or is this something you've had in you as a young kid? Like were you that young kid that really wanted to make sure everything was spot on? And
I think what happens is, and I look at, say the guys that are in the elite level of trainers in Australia at the moment, say Chris, Peter, guys like myself, we come from very humble beginnings. And so as a result, the fear of failure is the thing that drives you the most, okay? So by definition, it's harder for us to come from where we've come from. So as a result, it just we're probably a bit more driven than most, you know. And so I'll always be grateful because I had a father who taught me, a strong work ethic, and he taught me a lot about business at a young age. So that's just inherent about how we went about things.
yeah,
you know.
I can tell.
So up there in North Queensland, and he was a bookie as well.
Initially we had a big fuel business, and so I learned the concept of hard work at a very young age, and I'll always be grateful for that to be taught that.
Because John was always known as like everyone says, oh, who gives you best spray, or who is the angriest person, and John's name comes up regularly. But when you know John, what it is because he works at a very high level, right, and he expects a high level of intellectual people around him, and so when you like that, and John will go to leave no stone unturned to try and get to that point. So you got to have those like-minded people around him. When you don't lift to that level, that's when he gets upset because you need the team to all lift at once to get a result. So he really tows you along. I remember riding work, everything had to be perfect because that's the way perfection can bring about the great results. So that's what, and when people fall down below that or they don't want to lift to that expectation, that's when he gets angry.
I tell you, I didn't really understand that concept until I listened to a guy called Nick Saban who coached Alabama. And
Gridiron,
and he's generally regarded outside of Bear Bryant as the greatest coach to ever coach. And he said, high achievers don't want to work with low achievers, and low achievers don't want to work with high achievers because they can't keep up. So, and I've always wanted to be surrounded by the smartest people in the room, and I don't have, and that's not everyone's philosophy, mind you. A lot of people like to put themselves on a pedestal and have subordinates around them that make them allegedly look good. But I always felt that I wanted to have the smartest people in the room I could possibly get my hands on to work with, and so because I struggled to cope with those who didn't want to excel.
Is that why you cold called someone like Gai Waterhouse when you wanted to come and bet yourself because you saw Gai winning Group 1s for fun? I thought, I've got to learn from this person.
I just wanted to be the best, And I'd been to the Magic Millions, and I wasn't even in the horse game. And I was just pottering about because I was infatuated by it, and walked around the Magic Millions just as a niff-nuff. And I saw Gai had bought all these wonderful horses. I thought, geez, I want to be with her. She's going somewhere. She'd only just started out training and maybe won her first Doncaster 6 months earlier, and so that's I just cold called her and she was lucky enough to give me a start.
The thing that fascinates me about horse training, and Bossy touched on it before about his ability to see about a horse, and even off the cuff you started talking about a saintly 30 years ago about what he looked like and his physical attributes. How do you know, and I don't know, how do you know what a horse is thinking? How do you, like in terms of where you're going with the prep and you're trying to fine-tune them to be right at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon for a Group 1 race?
I don't necessarily, we don't know what they're thinking. You try to work on their personality, but I think that, I work on historical precedent. Okay, I just know that if we want to achieve that, then we have to achieve this. So, and it's the good horses are the easy ones to program because there's 150 years to tell you what you need to be able to achieve that. So when we were setting horses for races, we knew that. Say with regard to, say
linebacker.
Linebacker, yeah. Okay. So I knew when he stubbed his toe, he ran so very well first up, but then he stubbed his toe and he missed the lead up, missed the Epsom. I knew we were in trouble going into the $10 million race because history had said that every Australian horse that had won that race had run at a mile in the lead up to it. Yeah. Now he won one of the lead ups, a Silver Eagle, but he didn't have the miles in his legs, and that wasn't his fault. That wasn't our fault, just because he got an injury halfway through it.
How does a horse stub his toe?
Well, he didn't. When I say stub, that's. I mean, he wrenched a joint, but when I say stub his toe, we had a setback, and so, so that's it, and that's how I've always gone about. I knew that to get to where we need to go, this is what we have to. There are historical precedents to tell you what you need to be able to achieve.
If you get the process right, you can almost guarantee the outcome. If you actually have the right horse and you get the processes right, the outcome's the easy part, but the process is the part you got to nail.
Yeah. So you had that apprenticeship in Sydney, working with the best, Gai.
Yeah.
And then you decide, it's time to do this by myself. Is that like jumping off the 10-metre platform for the first time, diving?
It is but it is. We had nothing, so we started with nothing. My wife and I, we started with minus. We had to borrow money to start, and so when you got nothing, you just blast away. The hardest thing was when I come back from Godolphin, when I had something and had to start from zero again. That's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Why's that?
Well, because you go from taking 10 horses to the race on a Saturday with good chances and running in Group 1s every second week to loading a horse on the float on a Sunday, driving it yourself and a 20s chance in a Class 1 at Hawkesbury on a Sunday. That's a massive change.
It's a bit different.
No, it's different. But, I mean, when John first started, he just hit the ground running, didn't you, John? Like, it was like...
I was lucky. Our first starter run, you know, like, so our first run in Group 1 won. So, and, you know, but that was just... Well, lucky we had a bit of start.
Well,
then
I
we
wouldn't
got
call it luck. I wouldn't call it luck because you were meticulous from the...
Yeah.
Like you were... When John started training, it was like he'd been training for a decade. You know what I mean? It kind of didn't feel like this is a new trainer. You know...
But I'd been lucky. I'd had the grounding. If I didn't know what I was doing by the time we went training, well, I was never going to know.
Correct.
Now, you two have got a special relationship in the sense that your great early moments, this bloke was involved over there.
Well, because
How'd that
again,
come
I
about?
gravitated to the best. I just said, you know, if I was going to run a horse in a Group 1 race, I wanted the best Group 1 jockey to ride it. So when I set a horse for a race at Caulfield, and you know, he was the go-to guy. You know, like Glenn was riding 10, 12, 13 Group 1s a year. You know, so in them days he was riding against Darren and, you know, Jimmy and all the greats of the turf. You know, like Mac's doing it now, but I don't know whether the competition's probably as elite as when Glenn was doing it.
No, that was a great decade. And great tacticians.
Yeah.
Like all of them were... I don't think they're not tacticians anymore. J-Mac is definitely far beyond them, but we had a lot of great tacticians that knew speed and, you know, great front-running riders. You know, there was a lot of them. So they all had a very cute... You know, Timmy Clark he come through the system when he was an apprentice, and we wrote a lot of work together, and I used to get into him about, you must know your times, and he's now become arguably the greatest front-riding rider in Australia in the last 10 years.
And it's funny because whenever people have a front-running horse, they gravitate towards him as a result.
Of course, but it just instinctively knows how fast. But I'm not saying, but 10 years before that, there was 8 of those blokes in the room.
Yeah.
You couldn't pull the wool. You couldn't pull the wool from over their eyes because they were too clever.
Yeah.
Winning a race for him, what was that?
It was
Queenslanders
honestly,
Unite?
Yeah, no, it was great. Like we had some amazing times. We combined to win John's first 8 that he ever had, and I think I had 11 of my 90-odd winners, Group 1s for John. But like, you know, special horses, you know, Private Steer was, how good was she? Like she won a maiden by 10 lengths, and then you was bought and you got her.
Yep. Well, we took her over after she'd got travel sickness.
Yep.
And what have you. So, and again, we went through a process. I just followed. She won a Stradbroke the year after Dane Ripper, and I'd watched what Bart did. He ran through the PJ Bell, JB Carr into the Stradbroke, and so we went to PJ Bell and JB Carr. She won them both by 6, and I thought, well, she's going to be.
And then she ran the 10,000.
Yeah, running 10,000.
She ran second or third,
Yeah.
and then she went to 48 kilos in the Stradbroke. It was impossible to beat her, and she won by 3.
Yeah.
What was that week like for you, Bossy?
Bought John's first house in Sydney.
Bossy was eating lettuce leaves.
Mate, I had to kill myself.
Well, that would have been horrible.
Everyone says, "Oh, it's a good lightweight jockey," but I used to torture myself. Like I'm 64 kilos now, and I'm healthy.
Yeah.
So I was getting my body down to like 46.
You take that
47.
into consideration, like any kind of sympathy if don't quite work out when you've
No,
got this.
that was just my job.
I can remember Stradbroke morning, he rang me, and we'd had a few little problems with him in the lead up to the race, and but we just kept it quiet. And he rang me. He said, "All systems go." He said, "I'm right. You know, I made the weight." And I'm thinking to myself, "Geez, I hope the horse is going as good as you." But as it turned out, she turned up produced on the day.
Well, she drew barrier 1. It was sit and steer.
And the big miles at Randwick, which you won a couple together, one in particular with Private Steer in the Doncaster. It was an interesting race because plenty was happening. It was like a bunch of Dodgem cars going around turns at times there, and it was all happening, and you were out the back, and it was like, oh, where do I go? Where do I go? At the 300, what were you thinking of the pilot's job?
No, I didn't. It was one of those. She was always a mare that could get back, and she was just a bit messy early, and she got chopped out and ended up But she was an unbelievable Randwick horse. You know, she'd run very well against Lonhro in the rider on really firm ground, which didn't suit her.
Yep.
So when you're getting back to Randwick with a bit of juice in the ground was going to be a different scenario.
It looked like a miracle win.
Arguably one of my greatest rides.
Yeah.
in a big event, because, it's almost like, it's one of those trust moments where we got sold out early, things didn't go right. She had a reasonably light weight and I trusted her. Like, she was a underrated filly that could break 33. Her turner speed, like a gazelle. She was very quick. So all I knew was, okay, it's all went to for about 100 metres, and I thought, well, just stop and compose. I know I can still win. Or at worst, I'm going to run in the top 3 if I just give her a good ride from this point onwards. And we beat
Grand Army,
who was
airborne at the time.
And we beat him like he was tied to the fence. And then she comes out a week later and she wins the all-aged. Less than a week later.
Yeah, because the Doncaster on the Monday them days. And
on the Saturday. So she come
Monday.
out 5 days later and smashed it in the all-aged, coming back in distance. Like, when you get a mare like in that, when they're peaking, you could run them through brick walls and they just don't. They go, what are we going to do next?
John, how do you celebrate things like that? Do you go pat on the back, Bossy, well done, son, or big hug and have a big night?
No, well, and sort of, I think in them days it was sort of, well, even now, it's sort of like a relief. When they win, because the build-up is mind-blowing. You don't sleep for weeks, and so when they do win, you sort of, oh, thank God it's won. And you go home and you have a pizza with the kids, and that's it. Honestly, I've never been one for painting a town red, and, because I think so much goes into it, and when you have those elite horses like that and they win, is relieved. So.
Bit different to Malcolm Johnson when he came in here and talked about his Saturday nights after the races each
but
week.
we were different. Like, we were both young men at the time, and like of course, I'd jump up and we'd have a hug in the in the enclosure. In the enclosure, but then it was back to work.
I'll tell you who was there that day. She won the night. It was Jamie Foxx. Remember the actor?
Oh yes, that's right.
He got up on the
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx was there, and he had the big Swedish model there, and with the Vatican cities popped out there, and it was some hell of a day.
Yeah.
She was about 6'8" there, and holy dooly. And so then we of course Brownie was up on the thing with us, Nathan Brown, and it was a hell of a day. But that was the days where they had a lot of hoopla about winning those feature races, and I remember Jamie Foxx being up on the
I do remember
podium.
that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So Jamie Foxx and his lovely partner for the day has gone to a nightclub and just tied one on that night. You've gone home and had a Hawaiian pizza with the kids.
Well, that was about the standard play.
Yeah.
Arthur's Pizza at the spot was usually the go-to spot.
Remember the day when I went on Racing to Win in the 90? I flew in the helicopter like a superstar.
You what?
Flew in a helicopter.
Yeah,
I flew the helicopter.
You flew the helicopter?
at Randwick.
I've got a license, so anyway, I flew. I picked up some mates from. They said I'd probably due. I said, "Come in, we're going to go to the race." I thought they were going in the car. Anyway, this helicopter comes in with my instructor, and I said, "Oh, there's something. It's going to crash." So it's landed on my backyard. So I've got in, got the controls, and I fly us in there, and I won the Doncaster. I think I won 3 races at the time, and I wasn't in the last. So I said to the boys, I didn't even shower, just threw me gear on because you couldn't actually take off, obviously, with his horses coming in the close. So I had to take off before they came. So we raced out there, got the helicopter, and I went over in front of the grandstand, and then took off.
Bit
Subtle.
Like a rock. Thought I was a rock star.
Not your go, John?
Nah.
But it was funny, wasn't it?
It was worthwhile.
It was worthwhile.
Is that the one and only time you got a driven your own helicopter to the races? Or?
Yeah, it was the only time. The next year I left to go to Hong Kong and never got to do it again. So,
How good. Do you ever get a chance to go to Hong Kong? Like, a lot of good trainers have had the invite.
It was never my scenario. It was never my thing that I wanted to do. I just probably watched what it did to young families. If you couldn't, it was sort of a scenario where you had to take your kids when they were young, or you went when they'd grown up. And mine had got a big age gap, so it just never suited us.
Never happened.
Yeah.
But you ended up training for Godolphin for 3 years.
Yep.
There. What's that experience like? Because I read a quote again last night in preparation for this. When you're on your way out and you went out on your own, it was more to the point of, it felt like you weren't in control of everything and that's how you worked, because you wanted to be.
Yeah, I mean, again, making people accountable and for the job they do was sort of part of how I operate, and that's just something you didn't do there. So, I mean, I'll always be eternally grateful for the opportunity Sheikh Mohammed to train, because I learned so much about training and learned so much about myself training in that environment, right? So I'll always be eternally grateful for that opportunity. But in terms of what makes me tick and what makes them tick, they're two different things, you know. So, you know, I would want to make people accountable for their actions in terms of how they prepared the horses, what their job they did, and it's just something you didn't do in that organisation.
Yeah,
so
you just are basically an employee of the big company.
Yeah.
And that's where young James, to his great credit, you know, he had a different philosophy and you know, he just rolled with the punches, and that's why he, you know, stood the test of time so long there. And to be fair, Peter, who was there before me, he was there with the Inghams, but lasted 3 years.
Peter Snowden.
Yeah, when Godolphin had taken over, and sort of in a similar scenario. Peter's a, you know, meticulous, articulate trainer, you know, hardworking, and that's probably not, you know, how they would go about it.
But it's a big carrot. It's a big carrot to dangle in front of you because you know what's going to come through the barn.
Yeah.
Every year, you're going to potentially be training Cox Plate winners, you know, all those type of horses. So it's a big carrot for someone to say, "Oh no, I don't want that job."
It's interesting the way they've gone now, though. They've essentially diversified their training.
But I think it's more about costs. You know, like when you're wearing the cost of everything, you know, say the cost is, at the moment, to have a horse trained in Sydney is about 160 a day, but trainers subsidise that substantially. So if with Godolphin, they were paying the full tote odds, you know, so it would be costing them 200, 220 a day, you know, so and so you've got the scenario now where you get them done for commercial rates, and they're getting the same results. So it's win-win for them, really.
Going again, you touched on it before about, all of a sudden you're driving out to a Class 1 on Sunday at Hawkesbury and you're driving your own van. How long did it take you to get reacquainted and be comfortable with that?
A while.
Yeah.
Because when you work in that environment at Godolphin, everything's laid on for you, because so you're not in, and you forget the commerciality of the role you're doing, you know, like, and so you always, you know, as a trainer now, you're trading, you're dealing with people, you're on the phone all the time, and, you know, you're trading horses on a daily basis, and you have connections that, you know, that do all those things to assist you in that process, you know, whereas at Godolphin, it was simply you go to work, you train 150 or 200 horses a day, and then you lose touch of what's going on outside. And I always think about what happened to James when he got outed, you know, and
James Cummings.
No, James McDonald.
Oh, James McDonald.
James was under us, and he got involved with the wrong fella. And anyway, one thing led to another. He got a bit of time, right? But I think if we were in our commercial arrangement, where I would have my finger on the pulse as to who's who in the zoo all the time, that wouldn't have happened, you know. So because someone would have said to me, "Hey, that bloke," you know, and so. That's why I say you lose touch of what's going on around you, because you're a little bit isolated. You don't have, or you deal with the people that you're working with on a daily basis. There's no need for you to have contact with the outside world in terms of the racing industry. But when you're in it and doing what we're doing now, where you're in daily contact with the proliferation of people in proximity to your stable and proximity to your business, when, you know, if someone was to put his hand and try and get in contact with Zach at the moment, I'd be the first to know, because people would tell, you know, and that scenario wouldn't perpetuate, you know. So, and I always think with regard to Mac, you know, I sort of felt a bit guilty of what happened to him, because I sort of let him down a bit. I didn't protect him enough to, you know, when there was a bloke there that shouldn't have been in his team, he should have got a tap on the shoulder, and that wouldn't have happened, you know.
When you talked about, like you touched on, what I know my opinion of James, and I've spoke strongly about this many years. Even when you picked him out, I mean, there was massive rumours about this kid from New Zealand, and he was doing unthinkable things at a
how good he was
at a stupid age. Yeah. Like, and we're talking 17-year-old, the things he was doing on horses. People were going, "Wow, we got something." And John targeted him and brought him over. Was the first one to really say, "Okay, come across." And you know, not only have the ability to pick horses, but he has the riders is another thing that John does very well. But what's your opinion on him, John?
Well, he'll be the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So, and we bought him out as a 19-year-old. He come and rode in a winter meeting at Randwick for us, because all the boys were away, and one thing I said, I'll bring this kid over and we'll have a look at him. And I can remember he rode 3 winners. First day at Randwick, 3 winners at Randwick. He rode one for me and a couple of others. And I remember going home to my wife that night and I said, I thought this kid was good. He's even better than I think he is. But then he was so young, and we had to bring him out month to month, because you get homesick, have to go home. And then he'd come month on, month off. And then finally he got strong enough and confident enough to spend an extended period of time here and shot the lights out,
He's going all right now.
Yeah.
Oh, he'll go down in history as like the greatest jockey in the world for a long, long time.
Yeah.
He's the new benchmark. All these, and I've said it many times. Every 20 years there's this evolution of sports people that come along. Doesn't matter what sport, and they just raise the bar to a whole new level. And then the other kids like Zach Lloyd, they're the ones that are going to be now chasing that level, and there's no doubt he'll probably get there.
Yeah, I think though, but James McDonald is a generational talent. He's the Tiger Woods of his era.
That's
you know
right.
What I mean,
Yeah.
like whereas Zach's a good rider and he's going to be a great young rider. But James is generation.
Oh, mate.
What do you say to the good ones like Bossy back in the day and James McDonald when you chuck them on one of your horses?
Nothing.
Don't have
And
to
that's
say anything.
and that's one thing Bart always taught me. Instructions. The good ones don't need them, and the bad ones can't carry them out. And so, and I would never tie Glenn down. And as he said, I remember legging him up one day on a horse in the Metropolitan horse called Men at Work, and it was frightfully unlucky. He said, you didn't give me any instructions. I said, no, I don't do that. He said, well, I don't listen anyway. I'll never forget him saying that, so.
Yeah, that's your time.
Well, the
Once
thing
you
is
get
that-
that leg up, it's
The thing is, instructions can be null and void when the gate's open,
And
and
that's-
you've
and-
got to have that ability to ad lib very
always
quickly.
talked about. Yeah, absolutely. Got a good one now?
Yeah, we've got, a linebacker's a genuine Group 1 horse, and got a very good colt called Napoleonic.
We'll get to him.
Yeah, he's heading in the right direction, and a really good group of young horses coming through. So there's a couple of nice imports there, and we've got plenty to keep us busy.
That is good. Now, I mentioned AirTouch before, supporters of the show. Also, IPE events,
IPE
Bossy.
events,
So they're the place to go for all your corporate experiences at big sporting events in
Yeah.
2026. They'll be at State of Origin. They'll be at all the big stuff, all the races.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're going to the Quokka.
Quokka this year is a new one, but
couple of
the
months.
2025 was massive, and you don't think it's going to get bigger, but 26 will get bigger because they just added the Quokka. We've got the State of Origin, which is my favourite thing to ever go and see.
Yeah, Queensland were lucky last year, I thought, John.
What did we win last year? Everything.
The good thing is they've changed the rules, so we've got a prop that was going to come in
Well,
this
I
year.
thought
and
you
sort
had to
guys
do
out.
something to try and get a win, so you changed the rules accordingly. But the only thing is, does Jason Tamalolo now available for Queensland?
Yeah, if he gets picked, I
would
think
imagine
he
Yeah,
is.
he'll be front and centre.
Yeah, so they got to do something because they're a long way off the pace.
Yeah.
Not that far off the
Well,
pace. It was
no.
2-1.
There's this thing that the pace. The difference between the pace is the thing that Queensland's have. That stuff that you can't have. It's called heart. Playing for that. When we strap that jersey on, the boys, that's why they put a suit of armour on. You blokes just haven't quite learnt that yet.
Yeah, righto. Are you the same around Origin time as well?
Yeah. Live, eat, and breathe it.
Who's your NRL team? Cowboys.
The Cowboys.
Yeah.
So unfortunately,
You've
but
had a couple of good moments in the last.
we've
20
had
years.
being there, and one of the best days in sport I ever had was the year they won the grand final. Hartnell won the Turnbull Stakes at 4:00 in the afternoon. I was at Flemington, and I had a flight out of Melbourne at 5:15.
Yeah.
So the car was like acceptance speech, gone. Car lobbed me at the airport, and I'm hooting down the thing as the doors sort of closing, darted in and got on the plane, had a car to pick me up straight across to the stadium.
Yeah.
And that was the year that Jimmy Barnes, they did the pre-game.
Yeah.
They just finished singing, kick-off, sat down in the seat and sit there
What
and
a
watch
day.
the greatest
You're sitting like thinking 3 hours ago I was winning a Group 1
That was the
major.
Thurston Grand Final.
Thurston Grand Final.
Oh,
and so we were
yeah.
sitting behind Jonathan when the the first kick, you know, where it was just,
Yeah.
and I could have all the kids are like, hits the crossbar, you know, but then, you know.
I was just about to say, you had the kids with you, though. Please tell me you just didn't go home and have a Hawaiian pizza.
No, that was a great day.
You had an enjoyable time. Unreal. Probably deserved it as well.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Group 1 all-up team-winning grand
the
final.
Yeah.
And arguably the greatest grand final.
It wasn't he a horse, Hartnell?
Yeah, unbelievable.
People
Probably the best horse I've trained.
Well, I mean, he's never mentioned, you know.
Yeah.
But you go back and look at his record.
He kept on banging into Winks.
Winks, yeah.
I know, but he was a bloody.
That year, I think she cost me 6 Group 1s. We ran second tour in
Is that all?
between Hartnell and Haraki. Oh, man, it was... Yeah.
When did you come to learn that how good she was?
Oh no, we're under no illusions as to how good she was, you know. Like, but I used to like running against her because I felt it was the best form, you know. Like so, we ran into her in the old chipping Norton going into a Epsom with Haraki, and Haraki got within half a length of him. I thought, you know, and of course he went on and won the Epsom 2 weeks later, and that was the sort of the rationale that I used. If we could get within 2 or 3 lengths of her, that was usually a good guide to where we were going.
IP events, that's where we were before.
Yeah.
But if you want to go and do the John O'Shea and go something like a big race day into a big NRL performance, you can go to IP events and check it out.
Yeah,
So
well, there'll
check
be
them out
Doomben
online.
for the Doomben 10,000.
Yep.
So they put some great events in. I'm actually looking forward to going to the Quokka this year because I've never been to it. And the Perth, they put on a good show, so it'll be a bit of fun.
Absolutely. Let's now get to Bossy's best. The good horses are back in both Melbourne and Sydney again this weekend. We're actually going to start at Rose Hill, the Group 2 Hobartville Stakes. It's seen as a really good guide for the rest of this period of racing. And Bossy, our guest this week, has a runner here, Napoleonic. Are you going that way? Are you going with Chris Waller's Autumn Boy or somewhere else?
I think Autumn Boy could be the one because when he was winning last prep, I actually seen him a couple of times in the enclosure. And you look like a big foal. You look like a 13-year-old playing against the 18-year-old kids, but he was beating the 18-year-olds. And I just thought, I can't wait to see you in 6 months' time. And John just mentioned that J-Max said he's made the improvement. So if he has, he's a weapon.
You feel free to just lean us in on your one here, John.
I think my colt's very good, and you know he ran particularly well first up against with the horse that I think is the best sprinter in the country, and Tempted. So he's got a good foundation. He's just a horse that would prefer ground where he can just get his toe in a little bit. So they're predicting 35 degrees at Rose Hill. So if you got really firm ground on Saturday, that wouldn't be his best case scenario. But I think when he gets back to Randwick in the Guineas, on ground that is going to be a little bit more forgiving for him, be where he's best suited.
Yeah, we've got a soft 5 there at the moment. So
but if you got soft 5 ground, that'd be perfect.
That's good, safe ground. You know, I think that for everybody, that'd be good.
Absolutely. Ninjas in this one as well.
Yeah,
that's given a few punters from that day at the Gold Coast a few conniptions about losing that protest. So
it's actually put together what is a small 9-horse field, a good select field. This is a good race. This is a solid race.
Yeah,
so you'll find out where you're sitting very quickly early in the prep.
Yeah. What's your target with Napoleonic?
Well, it's all commensurate to what happens in the next, like if he was to win or run well in the Hobart, we'll go to the Guineas. And then if he won the Guineas, well, obviously he'd go to the Doncaster, So it's all relevant to what he achieves in the next
Atticus is a good horse too, isn't it?
It's a very good race.
Yeah, so
it's a very good race.
This is real solid.
That's the Hobartville. We'll go to Caulfield as well because we've got 3 Group 1s down there. Can I say, without being rude, in name, Group 1s, because looking at the dear old Oakley plate, I mean, with the program, something has to give sometimes, and you don't get the quality of field. There's only so many Group 1 horses to go around, and with all due respect to Hedged, 59 kilos in a Group 1, it speaks of, perhaps not the greatest depth, but you got one down the bottom there, Bossy, in Point Barrow for the Freedmans, who are just training winners left, right and centre down there. Deserved favourite.
Jamie Mellon.
It wins with lightweight.
Lightweight, they're always hard to beat, aren't they, John?
Yeah, especially in Oakley Plate.
Oakley Plate, Jesus, I've won a few of them, and you get all those horses with lightweights, and I mean, the lightweights over short distance sometimes isn't a massive offset, but you got a young horse with a lightweight coming through. They're the races you target,
especially his racing pattern. Like the race changes complexion usually late in the piece, and that horse got a great turn of speed with no weight.
Point Barrow in the Oakley Plate. Keep an eye. As for the Futurity Stakes, another Group 1, it's a pretty good field, this one. Pericles, Buckaroo, Evaporate, V8. Down the bottom, Treasure of the Moment is the odds-on favourite at the moment as we record this. Can she come back? She got off to a barnstorming start last prep, and then a few things went wrong. Bossy?
Yeah, I don't know what I was going to, besides the race, the only thing that gripes me, John, is you have these lead-ups as Group 1s.
Yeah.
It's not a Group 1 race.
No.
I mean, it's got Group 1 horses in it, but it irks me that you have grand finals before we have a grand final. You got a race here, the Futurity Stakes. Okay, it's the prize money's worth $450 to the winner. How the hell is it a Group 1 race?
Well, Group 1 should be for grand final.
They should be Group 1 should be Group 1 proper.
Yeah.
And they have these lead-up races like the Mackay Diva Stakes over a mile. It's a Group 1 race. It's not a Group 1 race.
I agree with you.
You know, I just wish they'd really have a sit down and think about this.
Well, do you know what's happening? As you know, Bossy, I went to Hong Kong last December, and I happened to be somewhere where that was the talk of the room. It's like, you Australians, how many Group 1s you push a shopping trolley down a hill and you call it a Group 1?
That's right.
So they're onto it, because over in Hong Kong, they've got a really small but select number of Group 1s.
And that's what they should be.
And they
in Europe, they do.
premium
They
on
have
there.
the Group 1s are the proper Group 1s.
Yeah.
So if you win a Group 2, you're still a very good horse, but you've got to go to elite level to win a Group 1 in Europe, haven't you?
Should there be a coal there, you think?
I'd be getting 20% of them.
20% should go.
Yeah. I think
100%.
what have we got, 50 something in the
Oh, no, we're 70. We have 70 Group 1s or so, thereabouts in Australia.
For example, the race that irks me is the Wink Stakes, right? Now, she's the greatest horse we've ever had. They've got a race called a Group 1 race at the start of the season, usually on a wet track, 1,400 metres. Surely we're entitled to give her a better look at things than that.
That's right.
She's entitled to have the best Group 1 named after her.
Yeah, it's like Mackay. That's the same. It's
yeah.
Mackay. It doesn't make it any special because you put a name beside it.
Yeah.
It's still a race. Let's just say it for what it is.
Yeah.
It's not a Group 1 race.
So shout out to those big 3 Group 1s at Caulfield.
Yeah, well,
we're still going to have a little.
mate, if I was on the patent committee, there'd be some changes there. I tell
And
you.
rightly so. But I mean, it's all politically based, and they've got to give to Queensland and some to South. But the reality is that if someone was being objective and going through and said, you get rid of 20% of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, after your comment about State of Origin before, I'd ban Group 1 racing in Queensland. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Just joking. John, time's got us. Really appreciate your time on Who's the Boss. Fantastic to hear the insights about how you do things as a trainer. It's fascinating, mate, and good luck for the autumn and next spring and beyond.
No, thank you very much. It's great to recap a little bit with Bossy. Obviously, we've got a great history together, and thanks for the opportunity.
All good.
I appreciate it, John. We don't get to do this very often. Ever since I retired, actually, you don't really, cross paths a lot. So it's really an honour to sit down, John, and go through the stuff and a bit of history. It's really, really been an honour. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Good stuff. And a reminder about our socials. We're on TikTok at Who's the Boss. We're all over Instagram as well. Make sure you like and subscribe and share the stories that we put up. And on YouTube as well. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel with all the episodes and wherever you get your podcast from. That's where you can listen to us as well. We'll be back next week with more Who's the Boss. Hope you enjoyed that video. There's plenty more content like that on this platform. But Bossy, what do you need to do first?
Adam, like and subscribe.
It's that simple. Like and subscribe. Plenty more from Who's the Boss on the way.